Hi class, Mr. McCray here, doing another video. Once again, my favorite pastime, I guess. This is a preview lesson on how to do simplifying radicals, or AKA square roots. So I'm basically going to go over some of the definitions and things and some background information really quick, and then I'll go into some problems and trying to show you how to do them. Okay? So first is we have simplifying radicals. Okay? So what is a square root? Okay? Square root is a number. I think you guys probably know this. A number multiplied by itself to give you what is underneath the radical. Okay? So the radical portion is basically the square root, the little the line, and then the little thing on the top. That is called the radical. So basically, what we're doing is simplifying radicals, but realistically, it's called square rooting those radicals. Okay. So, and how we're going to do that is by using the product property of square roots, which basically means that if I have a square root of AB, then I can split it up and make it basically be the square root of A times the square root of B. Okay, so let me give you an example of that so you can see that if I can get this thing, get some pixel control here. So I can move it all around. I almost got it. Yep. I'm trying to get it. Okay, that's better. Almost had it. Almost had it. There it is. Okay, so basically what I'm saying is, like, if we have the square root of, oh my God, of 10 here, okay, then I could just make a square root of 5 and the square root of times the square root of 2. Okay, so that's basically what that means. Okay, so the steps on actually working with a radical. Okay, and again, I'll show you. You're probably gonna be like, what? But I'll give you the steps and I'll show you how to do it on the next page. Okay, so the steps are: number one, when we're simplifying radical, we want to check for each perfect square until we find a factor of a given number. Then write that as the first radical. You're like, what? What are we talking about? How are we going to do this? All right. So you'll see in a second, but I just want to give you the steps. All right. And we'll talk about it a little more in depth. All right. Then you're going to write the second factor under another radical. Okay. And then you're going to simplify the radical, or sometimes you're going to simplify both. So those are the 3 steps. Check for a perfect square until you find a factor of a given number. Write it underneath the first radical. Write the second factor under another radical, and then simplify both radicals or just one. All right, so let me show you what I'm saying. Everybody's like, oh, that doesn't make any sense, Mr. Gray. What are you talking about? All right, so this is what I'm talking about. Perfect squares. So we just said that basically square roots are basically values multiplied together to equal another value. So basically the same identical value that is multiplied twice, that's going to equal whatever the square root is. So I made a list of perfect squares up to 100. Okay, so I would suggest you do that. If you have a few minutes, I would write that down. I'm going to stop the video so you can do that. Okay, because that's going to be very critical in your success on working with square roots or radicals. Okay, so here's the list. We have square root of 0 is 0, square root of 1 is 1, square root of 4 is 2. That makes sense because, again, 2 times 2 equals 4. So again, we're basically taking 2 perfect squares and we're pulling it out to make it a whole number. Okay, so we have 9, square root of 9 is 3, square root of 16, square root of 25, 36, square root of 49, square root of 64, 81, and 100. Okay, I think we can get that idea of how square roots work. Okay, so let's do some practice here and let me show you what I mean. Okay, so one way I like to do this is do prime factorization. It's an old school process that we used to do probably back in like 4th and 5th grade, of like breaking down the number into the smallest roots. Okay, so it's the same kind of idea that we do here. All right, so watch. Okay, so we have, let's do by the steps. Okay, so first step, it said, okay, find the perfect square of the value. So we have square root of 12. What is a perfect square of the square root of 12? Well, what we know is that square root of 12, it should be between 9 and 16. So it should be somewhere around here. The final answer should be somewhere around here if you do the math out and use it with a calculator. However, we're trying to simplify that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make up two little lines here to represent my factor tree. Okay. So the first step says find a perfect square that would go into the value you're trying to the value that you're trying to break down or simplify. Okay. So we have, looking at this, we have 4 here. Okay. So 4 is a factor of 12. So I'm going to put square root of 4 here. Okay, that's 1. All right. I'm going to put times here in the middle. And then what is the other factor? Square root of 3. Okay. Okay. So the question is, what do we know about the square root of 4? Well, I know if I break that down and I put that in my calculator, it's going to equal whole number 2. So that's easy. So I'm just going to put 2 here. Okay. And then I'm also going to put I'm not going to put that, but I'm going to put 2 here. All right. Okay. And I'm going to put a check with that. Okay. Now, looking at this, we have the other number on the other side. That's the next step, is like we want to break down the first number into the whole number, like we said. The third step says we're going to look at that second radical on the right on the square root, and we're going to see if we can break that down. But it looks like the square root of 3. Now, the square root of 3, it doesn't have a perfect square, so we're going to leave it the way it is. I'm going to check that one off. Okay, so that's done. So basically, now I'm going to put it together. Okay, so I'm going to put these two numbers together. So it's 2 square root 3. And I'm done. And that's the answer. Ooh, wow, that's pretty easy to do. I think so. Okay, so let's try another one. All right, so we have 98. Oh man, what's the factors of 98? I don't know. Let's think about it here. Okay, let's look at, first we got to find a perfect square that could go into 98. Okay, well, we know 98 is between 81 and 100, so it's going to be, the final answer is going to be somewhere between 9 and 10. So it's probably going to be close to 10, so like 9.8 or 9.9 or something like that. Okay, so we can figure that out in the calculator if we wanted to. All right, but looking at this, okay, now 81 can't go into 98, 64 can't go into 98, but 49, does that go into 98? Yeah, because if I do 49 times 2, that's going to give me 98. So let's do that. Let's do square root of 49. Okay. All right. Square root of 49 times. I'm losing it again. What's the self? Do this at night. Okay. 2. All right. And then we have 49 times the square root of 2. Okay. So what do you know about the square root of 49? That it's a perfect square and it's times 7, 7 times 7. So I can break out a whole number of 7 here. Okay. Now we have, and I'm going to put a check on that. Okay, because that tells me that that one's done. And then I have square root 2. Now square root 2 is, there's no perfect square to that. So that one's at this final resting place of that simplify can be. So I'm going to put both of those together. So it becomes 7 square root 2. And that's my answer. Okay. So everybody see how this is kind of working here? Okay, so we're going to find a perfect square first, take that out, then we're going to find another value. We're going to find the other value that's going to multiply or be a factor of with the perfect square, break that down, and then we're going to combine it back together to make it the smallest square root possible. Okay, so let's look at the next one. So we have 200. Okay, so we know 200 is way up here. Okay, that's a little bit farther, so I think that's like 14. Yeah, 14. So it'd be 14 something. Okay, 14.4, 14.5, something like that. If we want to do the math, you can put it in a calculator and figure it out. But that's not what we're here for. All right, so again, we're basically going to be thinking about, okay, what are the perfect squares that can go into 200? Pretty easy, right? If I make two lines here, I have, well, I can square root it by 100. Okay, and then I actually can square root it by 2. Okay, so let's work that out. So square root of 100 What is that? Well, it says it up here. Square root of 100 is 10. All right, so I'm going to pull out a 10 here. I'm going to check that off. And then I have square root 2. That's easy. All right, so I know that can't be reduced. So I have two things to check off here. So boom. And I'm going to make this 10 times the square root of 2. And that would be the simplest form of that answer. Okay? So again, the idea is you got to find, you have the value here, find the perfect square that works. Okay? Then take out the other factor of that with that works with the perfect square. Okay? And then break that down to the smallest value you possibly can. Okay? And then you want to combine those values together to make one simplified version of that square root. Okay? And that's how it works. All right. So if you have any questions or any concerns, please let me know. We're going to practice a little bit today, probably about 10 problems or so. And then, like I said, next week we'll really get in more depth involved into it. All right. Have a good day, guys. See you. Yep, make your choices early. Make your choices early. Somebody said make your choices early.